Bills Mafia. On today's Air Raid Hour pregame, we will be breaking down what we expect to see from the Bills this afternoon as they take on the New York Jets. Injury updates, key matchups, our pregame superlatives are all coming up. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour pregame edition. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on X at the Bills Guys. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on X at Tilt Money. And we are here this afternoon, or this morning, I should say, for this afternoon's game, due in large part to the Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza. So we want to shout out those two as we get started here this morning. And Dave, I was just saying, as I stumble through my intro here, a sleep deprived evening for both of us. I did some serious work last night, went and did some scouting for the Buffalo Bills. Jordan Tyson, I was on hand in Sun Devil Stadium last night to watch ASU Texas State. So I didn't get home till like midnight West Coast time. I didn't get to bed till like 1 a.m. So I'm rolling in here on like 3 hours sleep. I know you are a little sleep deprived as well. So it's gonna be a sleep deprived edition of the Air Raid Hour this morning.
Yeah, we'll get through it. Some coffee and actually kind of nice. The Bills have a 1 p.m. game today because I believe the next two after that we've got the Thursday night, and then I believe the one after that is maybe the Saints games at 1 o'clock. I think after that, I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, we've got the Thursday night game coming up after this one. So having a little 1 p.m. game here today, it's going to be nice. Yeah, sleep deprived for sure, but actually pretty excited to talk about this game because, yeah, this Jets team is quite an interesting team, and we've got an interesting matchup here today for an early season divisional game. So looking forward to chatting about it.
Big 4 days here for the Buffalo Bills as they have the Jets, and then on Thursday Night Football, the Dolphins. If they can do what they're supposed to do over the next 4 days and get these 2 wins, we'll be 3-0 plus have 2 wins within our division. But let's start with these Jets because this is not the New York Jets of the past couple of seasons. This is a team under Aaron Glenn now. They seem like, from a culture standpoint, to be a different beast in years past. Addition by subtraction. They look like a weight has been lifted with Robert Saleh gone. A weight has been lifted with Aaron Rodgers gone. This looked like last week, and again, week 1 can sometimes be deceiving, a different football team.
It definitely does. And obviously Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson both getting head coaching jobs off the Dan Campbell coordinator tree from a year ago. And so rightfully so, Lions were one of the best teams in the league, and Aaron Glenn really turned that defense around. If you kind of remember going back to when the Lions were on Hard Knocks a couple years ago, and that defense was really kind of the weakness of that Lions team, they really turned it around in those couple years under Aaron Glenn. And I expect that, given his background on the defense and given that the Jets do have some pretty good personnel on the defense, he will turn that thing around on defense. That was already a pretty good roster, and now seemingly having the guy that they want to run the show there in Justin Fields, a guy that'll be coachable for Aaron Glenn. They seem to mesh well together, and it is definitely a change in culture there for the Jets. And it's one of those situations where if ownership just kind of stays out of Aaron Glenn's way, this could be something that really works out for them because, really behind the Bills, the rest of this division is kind of up for grabs. And certainly, the Jets could position themselves to where they are, kind of pushing themselves towards maybe a wild card berth potentially even this year. But certainly looks like that's a team that's going to be on the rise under Aaron Glenn.
Let's now shift our attention to the Buffalo Bills because we've got some issues at home this week. Obviously, the defense was a problem in the last game. The lone bright spot, it seems like, for the Buffalo Bills defense last week in Ed Oliver, has his ankle stepped on in practice this week. He's expected to miss at minimum this week and likely Thursday Night Football against Miami. And then hopefully we can get him back for that Saints game after that nice little extended break there. Zion Logue activated from the practice squad, or excuse me, elevated from the practice squad. So no Jordan Phillips, probably not in game shape yet, as our guy Greg Tomset pointed out on social media. So it's going to be Daquan Jones and TJ Sanders and Zion Logue and Deion Walker likely as your combos in this game on the DT rotation. What are your thoughts on this really tough blow to the Buffalo Bills defense?
Not good timing, obviously, because again, we kind of talked about this at the end of the recap show from the Ravens. Like the Jets kind of personnel wise maybe come at you a little bit like the Ravens with the mobile quarterback, some read option, some zone read. Breece Hall obviously had a really amazing week one, and he's kind of been hampered by injuries and maybe coaching as well the last couple years. But between him and Fields, running the ball up the middle against this front down at Oliver is going to be something I would expect the Jets to exploit as they did a week ago against the Steelers. And it doesn't make me feel great. Zion Logue, him and Walker as the second wave, they're going to have their hands full in this game. I do expect there's going to be pretty heavy rotation of those four guys. And it's just kind of a waterfall effect, I would say, to the entire rotation. It when you lose that top guy, it waterfalls down to the rest of the rotation, and it's not a great situation for the Bills today.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you as well how quickly things change in the National Football League. We felt really comfortable with the depth at this position, even though there was a lot of youthful depth. We felt good about how deep this position was, but Larry Ogunjobi suspended, Dwayne Carter with the ACL, Ed Oliver with the ankle, Jordan Phillips not in game shape yet. Like in this league, position groups can thin out rather quickly, and the Buffalo Bills are going to need some really young players to step up in this game. And I think Deion Walker and TJ Sanders are going to be key to that because I don't know. Again, the Ravens are the unicorn, but didn't really see much of anything that would make you hopeful that Daquan Jones is going to show you any sort of shades of his past self. Speaking of injuries, the last part of our lead here before we get into whether injuries, offense, defense, like the specific game plan, stuff like that. Trey White, limited in practice all week with a groin. He is questionable. I thought in the cut-ups that I saw, not that I'm a medical professional, but he looked fluid and he looked good. Dorian Strong wasn't really challenged last week against the Ravens, but he was fine and got mostly positive reviews for his performance last week. Do we see the Buffalo Bills give Trey White another week, given a number of factors here, right? The injury, Dorian Strong not embarrassing himself last week, Dorian Strong probably being better against the run, and the Jets being maybe a run-heavy team. Who do you think we see at CB2 today, Trey White or Dorian Strong?
I believe if Trey White's fully healthy, he will get the start. Now the question, as Roy says, interested to see if Trey gets the start or not. I do believe if he's fully healthy, he will get the start. At the end of the day, it's going to be Christian Benford and Garrett Wilson kind of locked up for, I would imagine, most of the day. And then with Josh Reynolds out, the wide receiver 2, if you want to call it, for the Jets is going to be Allen Lazard. So maybe a good game for Trey to kind of get back into the swing of things as well. You mentioned Dorian Strong wasn't challenged a week ago. I don't know if you're the Bills right now, if you are ready to kind of say, hey, Dorian Strong's going to get the start over Trey White, who is our presumed CB2 as we were kind of entering the season, unless he's still not fully healthy, right? So I don't hate the idea of giving him another week, but I would say if the Bills feel like he's ready to go and he's fully healthy, he's probably going to get the start. Yeah,
I would lean towards agreeing, but I don't know. I something tells me I think we're going to see Dorian Strong for one more week. But I agree with you. Like because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and if behind the scenes, Trey White, who was questionable all week and limited all week, if in reality he's actually pretty darn close to 100%, I do agree with you. I think we'll see him, but
that turf too, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the other thing. MetLife,
yeah,
like, it's a house of horrors there for
yeah.
injuries, especially on the lower body injuries.
Yep.
So yeah, you may take that into consideration as well.
All right. On that note, let's get to the weather at MetLife Stadium for this football game. The temperatures are going to be between 80 and 85 with little wind today. Overcast, maybe some chances of a little rain early, but nothing serious. So rain should not really be a factor. On the injury front, the Jets are dealing with 3 injuries. Kene Nwango, the return specialist, special teamer, running back, Josh Reynolds, who is their wide receiver 2, and Jay Tufele, who's a part of their defensive tackle rotation. All 3 of those guys are out for this game. Questionable is nickel corner Michael Carter III and rookie tight end Mason Taylor. They elevated cornerback Corey Black from the practice squad. For the Bills, we already spoke on it. Ed Oliver is out. Questionable are Taron Johnson, Jordan Hancock, Shaq Thompson, and Trey White. Maybe a couple of clues as to who will and will not be active in this game from that questionable list. Keontae Jenkins, the linebacker, and Zayon Logue, the defensive tackle, have been elevated for this game. To me, Dave, and you can let me know what you think, my expectation is this week's 48-man roster is going to be pretty chalk to last week's with a few changes. Cedric Van Pran Granger is obviously going to enter the lineup now because Kendrick Green was not elevated. Zion Logue is going to take Ed Oliver's spot. Keontae Jenkins is going to take Shaq Thompson's spot. And that's going to leave the inactives, Oliver, who's injured, Thompson, who's injured, Curtis Samuel, or Elijah Moore. We can have that conversation in a moment. To me, I think it'll be Trey White again, Jordan Hancock, Chase Lunt, and Landon Jackson. Do you have any sort of takes on who you think will be active and inactive?
I think that sounds all pretty reasonable. I think the biggest question mark, obviously, is what we just talked about, is with Trey White. I think that I agree that I would lean towards Elijah Moore probably being the one active again of those two between him and Samuel. It'll be interesting to see if over the course of the season that changes a bit, or if the Bills maybe deactivate some other position. But in the game, today's game, I don't see that really making a ton of sense against the Jets. So I would expect it to be more, again, active. You mentioned Logan for Oliver, and the others make sense. Jenkins in for Thompson. So no, I think that sounds pretty reasonable to me. And yeah, I would imagine that's going to be the case.
And no Jimmy Charlo. I think some Hard Knocks fans are going to be upset with that. But Keontae Jenkins, before the injury, was looking pretty good and was clearly ahead of Adefano Lefosio on the depth chart. So clearly he made an impression. Clearly he's healthy as he gets his first practice squad elevation today. And this Curtis Samuel Elijah Moore thing is going to be, in my opinion, a week-to-week thing, and something that every week when the inactive list comes out, barring any other injuries, knock on wood, to the receiving core, it's going to be these two guys duking it out for that last wide receiver spot. Now, in terms of snap percentage, maybe Tyrell Shavers, who's more of a special teamer, is going to get less snaps than these two on offense. But really, this is the wide receiver 5 or the wide receiver 4. But there was no limitations on Samuel or Moore this week in practice, which is something we hadn't seen in a while. Both of these guys have been dealing with various things. Both of these guys missed practice time for personal matters. Curtis Samuel was obviously dealing with a number of injuries. I think Elijah Moore was banged up a little bit as well in there. So this is one of the things to keep an eye on over the course of the next couple of weeks is, who is it? Is it Curtis Samuel? Is it Elijah Moore? I think I would personally be interested to see what Curtis Samuel has this week. But you can't discount the revenge factor of this game for Elijah Moore.
Well, and the thing with Curtis Samuel too is he's the one you gave the big contract to as well. So how much does that factor into whether or not he's going to be active? Elijah Moore was a signing that was made, middle of the summer, well past the free agency period and the draft. So it's like, how much does that play in? I thought Elijah Moore looked pretty spry during the preseason, the chances he had as far as his route running. Curtis Samuel, I think, does need to somehow salvage an impression here to essentially determine his fate probably for 2026 with this team, right? Because he's in the second year of a 3-year contract. I think either one basically have similar skill sets, so it's an interesting thought that maybe Elijah Moore was insurance for Curtis Samuel during the summer period during training camp or what. But I'm not against like seeing Curtis Samuel. I just if they do decide to activate him, I think then that's a sign that it'll probably be him going forward.
All right, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the Buffalo Bills offense versus the Jets defense, a quick word here from our sponsor.
Picasso's Pizza. Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's. We are Buffalo Pizza. Shipping both local and nationwide. Order online today at Picasso'sPizza.net.
This episode is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza. With 4 convenient locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell, Picasso's Pizza has been serving Buffalo's best pizza since 1980. Whether you are local or across the country, you can enjoy their delicious pizza delivered fresh to your door. Visit Picasso'sPizza.net to place your order today. Once again, that is Picasso'sPizza.net. All right, Dave, on to the Buffalo Bills offense versus the New York Jets defense. And let's take a look on paper at this New York Jets defense. Along the defensive line on the interior, a guy we're going to have a nice lengthy conversation about today, Quinnen Williams, one of the best defensive players, in my opinion, in football. He had a monster week 1. We'll talk about that in a moment. Breaks my heart, but along that interior defensive line as well is Harrison Phillips, and they also added Juwan Briggs. So this was a position group that they had to retool in the final weeks of the preseason, and Harrison Phillips and Juwan Briggs are fairly new to the squad. On the edge, they got Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, and Michael Clemens. At linebacker, they have a very nice duo in Jamie Sherwood and Quincy Williams. And then in the defensive backfield, they got Sauce Gardner, Brandon Stevens, Michael Carter at corner, and then Tony Adams and Andre Sisco at safety. So, Dave, what are your initial thoughts about this defense on paper? A defense that, quite frankly, let a geriatric quarterback torch them last week.
You could say that. I mean, Rodgers was 22 for 30, 244. Look, Will McDonald, loved him during the pre-draft process. That's pretty well known. Michael Clemens was another guy I liked in the pre-draft process. Their whole defense really has stout players from back to front. And, digging into kind of how this defense performed a week ago against the Steelers, like, I'm actually surprised that the Steelers won that game. There was the one turnover that the Jets had that really cost them, because you mentioned Quinnen Williams had the 2 tackles for loss, the sack, 3 QB hits. And at the end of the day, the Jets defense actually didn't really play that badly against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They only allowed 53 rushing yards against the Steelers, only 218 passing yards. I know Rodgers had the 4 touchdowns, but overall, they didn't allow a ton of yards, only 271 total yards to that Steelers team. Now, they didn't force any turnovers, and they did sack him 4 times, but I think that defense maybe played better than the box score would indicate against the Pittsburgh Steelers a week ago. And the reason I think with Aaron Glenn and with the personnel, as I mentioned, sort of during the lead, is better than what it let on in week 1. So I do have respect for this defensive personnel. I had respect for the personnel when Robert Saleh was there. I probably have more respect now for the coaching combination with that personnel now with Aaron Glenn, and Will McDonald also was a force last week as well with 2 sacks. So it is a good defense, even though maybe just taking a quick look at what happened last week, you might not think they had a great week, but it really wasn't that bad of a week for the New York Jets.
You know what's crazy to me? And I should have put 2 and 2 together sooner. And I don't know what about my brain didn't put 2 and 2 together sooner, but probably should have taken some time this week to look back at the Bills-Lions game last year for some clues as to like maybe how the Bills will attack this Jets defense, because Aaron Glenn is obviously in different personnel, different team, obviously, but Aaron Glenn was running that defense in Detroit last year when the Bills played them. So maybe, I don't know, like a Ty Johnson wildcard player of the game, getting the running back involved could be something the Buffalo Bills look to do. I agree with you in a sense that I think the defense probably looked better than the statistics they gave up. But I still do think it's a work in progress, and I still do think this is the area of the game that the Buffalo Bills are going to need to exploit. I think we need to push that 30-point total again today, just because I think the Jets offense is going to be able to get theirs against the Buffalo Bills offense, maybe. And the game plan today is just not to the degree the Bills offense gets theirs on the Jets defense. So the big thing for me looking at last week is Quinnen Williams. 5 hurries, a sack, 2 quarterback hits, 2 hurries, 5 run stops. The Buffalo Bills are going to need to have a game plan to counteract his pass rush. They're going to have to be aware of him when they are run blocking. Like, Quinnen Williams is an absolute force. And to me, he is the guy that you are game planning against in this one.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be. And you kind of dive into some of the numbers as well for the Steelers on the ground. Like, Jalen Warren only had 11 carries for 37 yards, 3.4 yards a carry. Kenny Gainwell got 7 carries for the Steelers for only 19 yards, 2.7. I know Aaron Rodgers had to kneel down, but they only ran the ball for 53 yards on 20 carries a week ago, the Steelers. And I know the Steelers run game is also a work in progress because it's some new faces there as well, but they couldn't get anything going on the ground against this Jets interior defensive line led by Quinnen Williams. And so the Bills have had some pretty decent games.
And that would bring them down to the talent level of this Jets defense. No, I'm just kidding.
The Bills have had some decent rushing games against good rushing defenses. Like the Eagles come to mind a couple years ago. They've had some decent rushing games even against the Chiefs when they've been a good rush D, but they have struggled at times against the Jets running the ball. So I would say it is important to get James Cook rolling. You have to have a game plan for Quinnen Williams. And I think to kind of build on that will also help you kind of take some of those guys like Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald out of the game a bit if you can, establish some sort of consistency with that ground game up the middle. So, yeah, I mean, he is definitely sort of enemy number one, I would say, on the Bills list right now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. The Steelers ran the ball last week 20 times for 53 yards. That's 2.6 yards per attempt. Now, I know a number of people were kind of critical of Arthur Smith for the way he called their run game. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but so maybe there is some nuance to that. But the Buffalo Bills need to be much better than that, clearly, in this game. And I kind of want your take on this. If I'm the Buffalo Bills, and again, maybe I'm just trying to make something out of nothing here, right? Seeing what I saw in the preseason, seeing what I saw in week 1, if I'm the Buffalo Bills, obviously Ray Davis is still going to be active on game day. But like, to me, outside of special teams, Ray Davis isn't seeing the field unless somebody gets hurt, or the game is a blowout. I don't see the need to put Ray Davis on the football field on offense right now. Let James Cook get his. Let Ty Johnson get his. Let those guys get comfortable. Let those guys get in a rhythm. Ray Davis hasn't really done much in terms of creating explosive plays in quite some time now, since last season. So I'm not saying Ray Davis is a bust. I'm not saying Ray Davis is bad. I'm just saying right now he should probably just be injury insurance, and you should focus on your top 2 guys.
Speaking of injury insurance, he did have that nice big play against the Jets last year.
Yeah, he had a really good game against the Jets last year.
So, but I agree with you. People will say Ty Johnson's a third down back. I think that gets sort of associated with him being the third string running back, but I don't see it that way. I see Ty Johnson as the RB2 on this team and Ray Davis as the RB3. So whatever the depth chart says, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, Ty Johnson's going to play more snaps, I would imagine, than Ray Davis. But Ray Davis does need to get reps, right? And I don't know, maybe this is the game. They used him early in the season last year to kind of salt away games that the Bills had leads. Maybe that could be a role for him today if the Bills do have a lead in this game. But I do think you saw last week how important James Cook is to keeping this offense on schedule, really involved in the passing game as well. So I think that's something we need to kind of make sure continues this week against this Jets defense. And I would say, yes, it's probably a situation where you really need to lean on James Cook probably more in this game than you even did a week ago.
Let's talk a little bit about the passing game now, because we got Josh Allen, and Josh Allen is fun and he's good at football. So let's shift the conversation there. Now, even though last week's statistics might not necessitate this, I would like to see the Buffalo Bills take some more shots down the field earlier in the game. I'd like for the Buffalo Bills and Joe Brady to realize, and part of this is on Josh Allen too. So maybe I shouldn't even throw Joe Brady in this, because a lot of this was Josh Allen checking things at the line of scrimmage last week. I feel like the Bills didn't establish themselves as a vertical threat in the passing game early enough. It was a lot of line of scrimmage stuff. It was a lot of short yardage stuff. It was a lot of heavy reliance on the run game early. If you look at this Jets defense last week, and again, it's just 1 week sample size, Aaron Rodgers was 4 of 7 on 10+ yard throws for 80 yards and a touchdown. So some pretty good statistics. But even though, again, like I said, last week's stats don't necessarily necessitate this, because Aaron Rodgers is also a whopping 18 of 21 for 164 yards and 3 touchdowns on throws for less than 10 yards, including those behind the line of scrimmage. So Aaron Rodgers just torched this Jets defense in every way, shape, or form. But I think I would like to see the Buffalo Bills be a little bit more of a vertical threat early in the football game than last week.
I'd like to see that too. And you kind of go back to some of the history that Josh Allen's had in playing in MetLife. If you go back to the last 3 games that the Bills have played in MetLife, they scored 23 points against the Jets on Monday night a year ago. The game before that, they lost. They only scored 16. And the game before that, they lost and only scored 17. So, like, for as good as the Bills have been, this has not been a friendly venue for Josh Allen, especially, right? This is where some of his turnovers have come in some bunches, and some of his inefficiencies have come. But it's a new Jets team and it's a new defense. So I agree with you. I'd like to see them push the envelope a little bit more as well early in the game. I think that, yes, Sauce Gardner, he is probably going to be matched up with Keon Coleman a bunch, but we're going to need other guys to step up. Josh Palmer, Khalil Shakir, running backs, tight end. Like, the Bills have personnel to get it done outside of like having to worry about just Sauce Gardner. But that Jets defense is going to be aggressive. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're going to have to see some similar, I would say, type of schematics to what we were hoping to see last week against the Ravens, with Josh Palmer winning some of his one-on-one matchups, with Kincaid winning some of his matchups in the short and intermediate area. Same for Shakir now being a week healthier. So it's a challenge because the Bills and Josh Allen haven't necessarily played well in MetLife, but also I think that you can't let that deter you from being aggressive in this matchup, because your history shows that you're going to need to score in like more than 20 points to win this game. So you have to.
And somebody said this in the comment section. I agree. They said more play action passes. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know the Buffalo Bills play action rate last week was probably one of the lowest in the league. And that has been something where we want the Buffalo Bills to improve, because the Buffalo Bills have been pretty successful at it. I will say the caveat to that is when you're coming from behind like they had to, and you're running the offense they had to, play action maybe was not going to be part of that game script towards the end of the game as you're trying to fight back in it. So that could have had a little bit of something to do it. So the Buffalo Bills need to maybe be more mindful this week of working in the play action. Last week, Aaron Rodgers was 8 of 10 for 101 yards and 3 touchdowns off of play action. If the Buffalo Bills aren't running play action at like a 30% clip this week in their passing game, something's wrong. Something's real wrong.
Well, and that's where you kind of use the aggressiveness of what Aaron Glenn brings with that defense. Cisco's an aggressive safety. The linebackers are aggressive. Quinnen Williams, I think, is one of the more underrated linebackers in the NFL. But that's an aggressive defense that, with misdirection, perhaps you can get some openings and you can take advantage. So I would like to see the Bills do more of that. You mentioned they were behind, so they kind of had to go away from it a bit. But I also think this is why it's important for them to establish a little bit of a running game. Yes, you don't need to have a running game to really have effective play action. That's kind of been proven. I understand that, but you still would like to mix it in to make it just that bit more effective. And I would agree with you. There should be some openings if the Bills can run some effective play. And it doesn't even have to be like, it could be that, right? It could be that 10 to 12 attempts, like you mentioned that Aaron Rodgers had a week ago. Like that to me is enough, in that 10 to 15 range, 10 to 12 range. I think that's enough for this offense. If you're going to have some chances to be effective with it, I think that's fine. So I'm with you. One of the things you can try to take advantage of is the aggressiveness of this Jets defense, and that's a way to do it.
James Sinclair and a couple other people have come in the comments section as well, talking about the use of man coverage from Aaron Glenn. The Jets ran 50% man coverage last week, and I was just pulling it up on my phone because this is another thing I forgot to put into my notes. So thank you guys in the comment section. Looking at it, the Jets, where are the Jets on this list here? I had them. 38% cover one man, 6% cover zero man, 6% cover two man. So 50% man-to-man defense. That is how they chose to cover. So letting Josh Allen run, James Cook out of the backfield, Khalil Shakir, like Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. Like those are the things that sort of Ty Johnson. Those are the things that sort of rattle off in my head in terms of how did the Buffalo Bills go about defeating the New York Jets and scoring points on this offense is attacking those man coverages.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like I mentioned it kind of briefly a little bit ago, Khalil Shakir being another week removed from that injury. He's had big games, obviously, we know, against the Jets in the past. I think having that security blanket for Josh Allen, Kincaid healthy, we mentioned how impressive his game was a week ago. It'd be nice to see that trend continue as well for them. But I mean, you look at sort of the Steelers and what they did last week. I mean, Aaron Rodgers only completed 22 passes, but of those 22 passes, 3 were to Pat Freiermuth and 5 were to Jonnu Smith. So 8 of his 22 completions were to tight ends. So yeah, I'm with you. Get Kincaid and Knox involved in this game.
And I'll tell you what, listen, the Bills have yet to show me in the like Sean McDermott era that they can successfully, since Jan Gailey, they have failed to show me that they can successfully run a screen game. Yep. But if the Bills ever were to try to run a screen game, Aaron Rodgers was 9 for 9 for 48 yards and a touchdown on screen passes last week. So pretty darn efficient. If you can get the ball into Khalil Shakir's hands, James Cook's hands via the screen game, if we can somehow figure that out in a week, something that we haven't been able to do in like 7 years, I think that is a way you could attack this team as well. But it's going to be really interesting. It seems like we got our big five now. The 5 guys this offense funnels through: Coleman, Palmer, Shakir, Kincaid, Cook. Then you got your 6-7 for the kids out there options in Dawson Knox and Ty Johnson. Who do you think stands out this week? Because to me, I think Shakir, Kincaid, Knox, and Johnson are going to be those man beaters. And then I look at the cornerback position. If Sauce Gardner shadows Keon Coleman, maybe Keon has a slower week, and maybe a guy like Josh Palmer lined up against Brandon Stevens, that's a matchup that you can really attack. So maybe it's a quieter week for Coleman this week, but it really accentuates the weeks of everyone else.
Yeah, and DK Metcalf last week got 7 targets, 4 catches for 83 yards. So it wasn't a huge volume game for him, but he made it effective. Calvin Austin, a favorite of ours in the pre-draft process, a couple years back, finally kind of breaking out a bit, had 4 catches for 70 yards.
Now they just got a free Roman Wilson. I don't know what they're doing.
But that to me is a good sign for Shakir. It's a good sign for Palmer. I know it's only been 1 week so far, but if you look at sort of the Jets DVOA against the receivers after 1 week, they were 32nd, dead last against slot wide receiver 3, 29th against wide receiver 2. So to me, Palmer and Shakir, this is a game for them to step up. I think those two, as far as your receivers, they're going to be the main two. Cook, obviously, we know what we want to get from him, and Kincaid, they were 23rd after 1 week against the tight ends, and I mentioned they had the 8 catches the Steelers did for their tight ends combined. So, but to me, I think, take Cook out of it for a second. It's Kincaid, Shakir, and Palmer, I think, would be the 3 guys for me.
All right, let's shift our attention now to the Buffalo Bills defense versus the New York Jets offense. We've already dug into Ed Oliver, and we've already dug into cornerback 2 at the top of the show. So let's turn our attention now to this Jets offense. I I'm not gonna lie to you. I joked all off season long. I had a lot of fun with the Jets offense. I said it was gonna look like Army Navy with how much they were gonna run the ball this season. I joked that they were gonna be running the ball out of wishbone, but Justin Fields in that passing game, they looked okay in week 1. And again, week 1 can always be deceiving. Maybe the Buffalo Bills bring them back down to earth. Hopefully the Buffalo Bills bring them back down to earth in week number 2. But looking at that roster, their offensive coordinator, Tanner Ingstred, he was the Lions passing game coordinator. He had himself quite a week 1. Justin Fields was their quarterback. He looked pretty good week 1. Breece Hall looked like Breece Hall. Braylon Allen struggled, but they got Isaiah Davis in the running game as well. Garrett Wilson was a stud, but he's pretty much it in terms of their receiving options other than like Breece Hall out of the backfield. Because if you really take a look at it, Josh Reynolds is out. So maybe Alan Lazard is active this week when he was inactive last week. They've got Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith. They just signed Isaiah Williams off of a practice squad. They've got the rookie Mason Taylor at tight end, but he's dealing with an ankle. They got Jeremy Ruckert. They got Andrew Beck. Again, like Justin Fields could end up being something like lightning in a bottle for them. Breece Hall, really good. Braylon Allen, when he's clicking, decent number 2 option, right? The Thunder Lightning there. And Garrett Wilson, really, really good. Mason Taylor might end up being a decent tight end, but this Jets offense funnels through like 3 dudes right now. Like there's not a lot there on paper.
Not a lot there. Breece Hall, they fed him the rock last week, had 19 carries, added 2 catches as well. Garrett Wilson was Justin Fields only completed 16 passes a week ago, and 7 of them were to Garrett Wilson, 2 were to Breece Hall. So 9 of his 16 were to those 2 guys, and the rest kind of spread out amongst the rest. But this is going to be kind of, again, like we said, a bit of a comparable maybe to a Lamar, Henry, Zay Flowers. You have your Justin Fields, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson trio. That's their offense, right? And with Ed Oliver out, Breece Hall has had good games against the Bills in the past. Christian Benford likely going to have, his matchup. It's a really good matchup, him against Garrett Wilson. Aaron Rodgers has had taken advantage of that matchup in the past. We'll see if Justin Fields can, but the big thing now is Justin Fields on the ground, right? 12 carries for Justin Fields a week ago for only 48 yards, only 4 yards per carry for Fields, which is low, but he still got the 12 carries and he ran in for 2 touchdowns. I know a couple of those were QB sneaks, but even still, he's a threat. And that's really, again, something the Bills did struggle against in the week 1 game against the Ravens, is kind of maintaining their contain and maintaining that discipline. And that's going to be something I think the Jets will try to exploit against this Bills defense. Again, Joey Bosa, Greg Rousseau going to have to be really good at setting those edges today and containing. But they're going to have their hands full with Breece Hall because he's not the same type of running back as Derrick Henry, but equally capable of taking one to the house and more so capable than Derrick Henry of hurting you, especially out of the backfield. And the Bills have been really bad against defending the screen game. You mentioned the Bills not using the screen game on offense. They've also been bad at defending the screen game of opposing offenses, and Breece Hall can really hurt you there in that regard. So I think they are going to have their hands full today, even though it's a limited concentration of guys that the Jets are probably going to be able to do damage with, but they're really good players, the ones that they do have concentrated.
Yeah.
So
do not let Garrett Wilson beat you. Do not let Breece Hall beat you. If we lose because Braylon Allen pops off, if we lose because Tyler Johnson pops up, so be it. Don't let those stars beat you. That offensive line, and shame on me because again, I was half awake when I did my show notes this morning here. We respect the big uglies here on the Air Raid Hour. So my apologies for not having the data in front of me because I forgot to put it in my notes. But left to right on the offensive line is Olu Fashanu, John Simpson, Josh Myers, Joe Tippmann, and Armand Membu. Obviously, Elijah Vera Tucker suffered that injury, and that was brutal for them. We loved AVT in the pre-draft process. It's just been a brutal pro career for him with injuries. But that line, it was pretty good, especially against the run. I mean, Armand Membu had a pretty historic week 1 in terms of like raw statistics from a right tackle standpoint. He was rock solid at right tackle. Joe Tippmann looked good at right guard. If you're looking for the weaknesses on this Jets offensive line, Olu Fashanu, and again, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but there was a decent number of pressures and hurries that he surrendered last week. And John Simpson was their weakest offensive lineman against the run. So if you are going to attack this Jets offensive line, you're probably going to look to attack it from the left side.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, the Ravens probably, the opposite, I would say, in a way. So perhaps this is a situation where the Bills can kind of right the ship, so to speak. Fashanel was graded out. Again, these are just PFF grades, but pass blocking wise, 43.7 grade last week, where Mumbu was a 70, almost an 80. So, and was fantastic in the run blocking game. So yes, you want to attack Fashanel if you can. I actually liked him too in the pre-draft process, but he struggled a bit last week. But the Jets do have a decent offensive line. It's certainly better than where it was for them a couple years ago. Obviously, AVT being out stinks, but Marino's legacy comes in and says there's no excuse for the defense to not be really good today. The entire offseason used to help the defense. I understand week one, but it's got to be it's got to be better today, I think, right, than it was a week ago.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting us to come out and be like holding the Jets to 100 yards total offense or anything like that, but it needs to be better. I agree with you. I agree with you there.
To me, it's three guys that I'm looking at today. It's Terrell Bernard, it's Matt Milano, it's Taylor Rapp. Wake the F up. The three of them need to wake the F up. Like, I know, Eric Turner was like, is Terrell Bernard hurt? Blah, blah, blah. Like, if he's on the field, he's got to show up. Don't care if he's hurt. Like, Joe Marino was pointing out, like, Taylor Rapp looked like a guy who has been concussed to like 2 of the last 3 times he played against the Baltimore Ravens. You can't look like that. You can't play like that. So whether it's the guys in front stepping it up and making life easier for these 3 guys, or these 3 guys just sacking up and being better football players than they were last week, Milano, Bernard, and Rapp need to improve, because those are some of the veterans, the carryovers on this defense. And if Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano and Taylor Rapp are not showing up on a weekly basis, the way this defense operates and the communication and the disguising of the coverages, this is not the Green Bay Packers who are just going to just go hunting, right? That's not who this team is. A lot of what they do on defense relies on just communicating on the back end and things of that nature. So Milano, Bernard, Rapp, they got to step up, or we're going to be in trouble this year.
Yeah, and I mean, what a difference the conversation is this week about Terrell Bernard. I mean, I know you had very high hopes for him.
Yeah,
being,
I was really disappointed.
A dark horse DPOY candidate, but he disappointed. And Matt Milano was kind of invisible last week as well. Those guys have to be better today, especially because the reality is most of their responsibility is likely going to be tracking down Justin Fields and tackling Breece Hall today, right? There shouldn't be a ton for them to do in pass coverage today. So hopefully from a mental standpoint, it's a little bit easier on them today. But man, those guys, they have to be better. And Taylor Rapp, I'll give Cole Bishop some slack, right? Because he's been hurt. He's still a young player, doesn't have a ton of reps. But he was
better than all 3 of those guys.
but for Taylor Rapp, there's really not an excuse, right? So that's why I'm saying that. So yeah, I would tend to agree. And I think James in the comment, James Leclerc said here, 58 and 8 have to be better today. Yeah. And I 100% agree with that.
Looking at some of the Jets statistics from last week, again, it's just 1 week of sample size, but the Jets rushing attack, Breece Hall, 19 carries for 107. That's a 5.6 yards per carry average. He had 90 yards after contact and 4 10-plus yard runs. Like, we gotta limit the explosive there. Justin Fields had 12 carries for 48 yards, 4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and 1 10-plus yard run. Isaiah Davis had a 10-plus yard run as well. They ran 29 zone runs compared to just 4 gap runs. So that's something to be aware of as well. Obviously, I think Bobby Babich and the Buffalo Bills defensive coaching staff is going to be well aware of that. So to me, bracketing Garrett Wilson and just stacking the box. That's what the Bills need to do. You got to shut down Breece Hall. You got to shut down Garrett Wilson. You got to make sure you have a spy on Justin Fields. But that's my very, very, very basic game plan. Because again, easier said than done. But what do you think the Bills need to do to shut this rushing attack down?
Yeah, and if Terrell Bernard is a little banged up, like, let's get him kind of in a position to where he's going to have the best impact, and that might mean Matt Milano becomes the spy on Justin Fields, and you can kind of let Terrell Bernard work a little bit more in the run game, so he's not running sideline to sideline as much. I do agree with that. I go back to the point I made though with Bosa and Rousseau. I think those guys are going to be critical today in sort of setting the tone and on the edges and making sure that from a zone read standpoint, from containing Justin Fields standpoint, that they do their job. He had the 2 touchdowns, I get it, but if the Bills do hold him to only 4 yards per carry, I think that's a win for the Bills today, right? If he's 12 for 48 today, or 10 for 40, I think the Bills can live with that, especially after what Lamar did to them.
As long as there's not 2 touchdowns.
As long as I mean, yeah, a couple of those were sneaks, but yes, agree. I do think that is huge. The defensive line is really going to have to set things up for the rest of this defense today. It's a huge opportunity for Sanders and Walker. Daquan has to kind of have somewhat of a vintage Daquan day today, and TJ Sanders. I put it on X, like, let's see what you got, man. Because you've got the spotlight on you now. You were the 2nd round draft pick. Brandon Beane sort of gushed about him in the post draft press conference as being a 3-down player. So let's see what you've got today against this against Breece Hall, and you got to limit those explosives as you mentioned. And to me, that is hugely important.
Like, I don't even care if Breece Hall runs for 100 if they're a hollow 100. Like, if he carries the ball 25 times for 100 yards, that's only 4 yards. That's still a decent chunk, but 4 yards per carry, like, it's a lot better than rattling off like 4 or 5 or 6 of those big chunk ones. So if he just ends up running 25 times for 100 yards, 4 yards a pop, right, and the Buffalo Bills are better on 3rd down, cool. Those are hollow statistics. So to me, it's all about the explosives. Like, I could care less about the total yards. I care about the yards per play. I care about the yards per carry. I care about the explosives. Like, that's I think what the Buffalo Bills have to clean up. If they can clean up that, get better on 3rd down, clean up the explosives, I think they'll be just fine this year. And I think somebody in the comments section did a really good job sort of summarizing that. Where did it go? I don't know, Dave. Maybe you can find it in the comment section. Talks about cleaning it up on 3rd down, getting like 40% on 3rd down, and giving up 20 points per game. Do you see it in the comment section there?
Yeah.
Can you pull that up?
I don't see it, but I did check the Bills were the 4th worst 3rd down defense in week 1, by the way. I looked that up before the game. And then just taking a look even more so, kind of the Jets put up nearly 400 yards of offense last week. They were 7 for 14 on 3rd down, 1 for 2 on 4th downs. They averaged 9.2 yards per pass. And 6.4 yards per play. So a pretty decent number for the Jets. I'm trying to see if I can find that comment.
There you go. It was Marino's league legacy. He says, I completely understand the RPO and conflict it puts on the defense with Lamar. It's extremely unique and tough to defend. They did have a unicorn opponent week 1. That's an important thing to notate. It's an important piece of context. But he says, I think 17 to 20 points and 40% 3rd down defense is a realistic expectation. 100%, right?
Like, that's fair.
I think if the defense can keep the opponent under 20 points every week, the offense should be able to score more than 20 points. And that's the only. I would like someday to have a absolutely killer defense and a killer offense at the same time. That would be fun. But if you can just give me a respectable defense and a killer offense, that'll do just fine, especially in the regular season. Justin Fields, he had himself a really nice week 1. He went 16 to 22 for 218 yards and a touchdown. Garrett Wilson had caught 7 of 8 targets for 95 yards and a touchdown. Fields obviously added those 2 touchdowns on the ground as well for a total of 3. Looking at some of the data for Justin Fields on the day, when he was kept clean, he went 12 of 14 for 168 yards and a touchdown. And when he was pressured, he went 4 of 8 for 50 yards. So clearly, if quarterback is feeling a little bit of heat, Justin Fields is not the kind of quarterback that's going to be able to sort of dial it up like a Joe Burrow or other quarterbacks the Buffalo Bills will face on a regular basis. So getting some pressure on Justin Fields will be key. He handled the blitz pretty decently in week 1. He completed 7 of 11 attempts when blitzed for 123 yards and a touchdown. I think the one positive, if you're a Bills fan, their play action game wasn't great. 2 for 4 for 31 yards on 6 dropbacks, and they only attempted 1 screen the entire game. I think that might change today, but I hope it doesn't.
I think that might change too. And I think that it's all well and good to get pressure. But as we've seen the Bills struggle with as well, if they don't get that quarterback down, the running lanes are wide open for a guy like Justin Fields typically. So, and Carl comes in with the super chat. Thank you, Carl. Expect McD and Babbage to stack the box and shut down the Hall Fields running game. Does that make the Garrett Wilson Christian Benford matchup pivotal? I do think so, but I also think like Garrett Wilson has gotten his against the Bills in the past, and the Bills still have been able to largely shut down the Jets offense in totality. So again, if Garrett Wilson goes for 7 for 95, but doesn't score a touchdown, and like the Jets don't really get any, let's say don't get anything passing touchdown wise out of their passing game, like I can live with that, right? If they've shut down the run game.
Yeah. I think that's a great comment too from Carl. It's like, hey, Christian Benford, this is why we pay you. We got to go stack the box to shut down Breece Hall. You got to take Garrett Wilson on an island, and you got to handle your business. So that's a great super chat from you, Carl. Always appreciate your super chats. And we are on now to our pregame superlatives. All right. As always, we start here on the Air Raid Hour with our Take Me Higher player of the game. Feel free in the comment section to join in with us. Let us know who your Take Me Higher player of the game is. For those of you who don't know, our Take Me Higher player of the game is a star Bills player, right? A cornerstone Bills player. A name Bills player, not named Josh Allen, that needs to step up big for the Buffalo Bills to win this football game, or someone we predict will step up big. Dave, who's your Take Me Higher player of the game?
I'm going with I feel like I'm stealing your guy here, but I was going with him no matter what, and it's the face of our sponsor of Picasso's. It's Khalil Shakir. I'm going with him. Another week removed from getting away from that injury, has had good games against the Jets in the past. Calvin Austin worked the middle of the field pretty well, as Charles G says, feeling like a Shakir game. Shakir, I think, for a team that's kind of struggled at times offensively against the Jets, as the Bills have and Josh Allen has, keeping this offense on schedule, converting third downs, potentially finding the end zone. Doesn't have to be a huge day from a yards per catch standpoint, like 6 for 64 a week ago against the Ravens. I'd love to see that maybe at 7 or 8 for 70 or 80 yards today. I would be pretty happy with that from Khalil Shakir. But I think it's important for him to have a good game working the middle of the field, good game from a yards after catch standpoint, especially because I think the Bills offense is going to be challenged running the ball up the middle, and I think they're going to be challenged on the boundaries as well. So give me Khalil Shakir as the Take Me Higher player of the game today.
Yeah, I'm going to double down with you. I'm going to go Khalil Shakir as well. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, 18 to 21 for 164 yards, 3 touchdowns on throws of less than 10 yards, including behind the line of scrimmage last week. 9 for 9 for 48 yards and a touchdown on screen passes last week. The Jets run 50% man coverage, and Khalil Shakir is one of our better safe separators and Josh Allen's safety valve. So to me, Khalil Shakir is an easy choice here. I want to see him finish. Hey, we paid the man this offseason, so I want to see him finish 7 to 10 targets, 100 plus yards and a touchdown. That's what I want to see from Khalil Shakir today. Right. Like, obviously, like, that's Wonderland, but that's my extension. Like, you pay that dude to be your alpha slot. Go be our alpha slot in this game against the New York Jets. But I will say, since we both picked Khalil Shakir, with all that man coverage, with all that data I've sort of thrown at you with what Aaron Rodgers did last week, other guys that maybe you could expect to really be a Take Me Higher player, Dalton Kincaid, James Cook. Those are two of the other options of guys who could probably step up. If it's not Shakir, it could be one of those two guys, and Cook, especially in the passing game. And obviously Kincaid, we're hoping Kincaid steps up this year and is that dude. And this would be a chance for him to be that dude as well. Marino's Legacy comes in and says Bosa, Rousseau, Sanders, Walker, dominant 10 sacks. Save that for the hot takes, Marino's Legacy. Save it for the hot takes. Up next is our wild card player of the game. All right. Wildcard player of the game is a player that's not sort of I don't even want to say name player anymore because, but not one of the Bills' like cornerstone star players. who's sort of an under the radar player you think could have a sneaky good game and help the Buffalo Bills to a victory here today?
I'm not sure if he qualifies, but I'm going to throw him in it for this week just because he's new to the team. They did give him a lot of money, so probably doesn't qualify, but I'm throwing him in here anyway. I'm going to say Josh Palmer. I'm doubling down on wide receivers. We talked about in the Bills offense segment about trying to maybe push the ball downfield a bit. Brandon Stevens maybe going to be covering Josh Palmer at times if Sauce Gardner's on Keon. I think Josh Allen's going to have an opportunity maybe for a deep shot or two to Josh Palmer as maybe a lower volume but high impact type player today for the Bills against that Aaron Glenn defense. So probably slightly out of the range of a wild card player, but I'm still going to say Josh Palmer today, doubling down on wide receivers between Take Me Higher and wild card. Big player too for Josh Palmer down the field today.
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Josh Palmer against Brandon Stevens. I just made a trade in our dynasty league. I had Josh Palmer to my team, my sad looking team that I am trying to trade to sell off. No, I'm trying to sell off for draft picks, and nobody's biting. So I'm not doing so well in our Cover One dynasty this year. It's a rebuild year with a really bad roster. And
we're playing each other this week.
You're gonna kick my ass. You're gonna kick my butt. My wild card player of the game is Dawson Knox. Jonas Smith had 4 catches on 5 targets last week for 15 yards and a touchdown. I expect Knox to deliver like 2 or 3 like nice little plays in this game and maybe add a touchdown. So I'll go with Dawson Knox. Marino's legacy comes in, says Jackson Haas is rambling the next Gronk. No, sir. I'm sorry, but that's Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft.
That dude is awesome.
Holy crap. Him. That was fun to watch.
It's funny. Didn't they draft they drafted Luke Musgrave ahead of him.
Right? Ahead of him. Yeah.
Same draft. So it's funny.
Luke Musgrave is the Aaron Hernandez minus the murder.
He's battled injuries, so I'll give him a little slack. But man, Tucker Kraft looks like a beast. That Packers team looks good.
My Super Bowl prediction looking good right now. Did you have the Packers too in your Super Bowl?
I had Bills Eagles, but man, Ashley's she's stoked about the Packers this year, man.
And for good reason. That's a fun team. All right, up next, our Respect You player of the game. And James Leclerc came in at the buzzer with former Jet Ty Johnson for his wild card play.
Oh, I like that.
It's a good pick as well, especially with the man coverage and you saw Ty Johnson be vital in that Lions game last year. So again, Aaron Glenn coordinated that Lions defense. Maybe the Bills have a specific plan for Ty Johnson in this game. All right, our Respect You player of the game. We got to pick one player on the opposing team that we have to respect. There's a couple of guys that really stick out to me on this Jets team that we can choose from. And I'm sticking to my pledge to only pick one player this year. So I need the comment section to help me out and start listing all the guys that the Buffalo Bills should respect. But Dave, I'll start with you. Who's your Respect You player of the game?
I mean, we talked at length about Quinnen Williams. I could go there. I'm going Breece Hall, though. I feel like Breece Hall, after that showing week 1, feels like Aaron Glenn is not going to be afraid to unleash Breece, not going into the season with any kind of injury like he had the last couple years. They really leaned on him. He was super effective against the Steelers last week. You mentioned the 10-plus yard plays. To me, Breece Hall really scares me, and he really scares me too if the Jets do decide to sprinkle in some screen game with him today, because he did only have 2 catches a week ago, but I could see that number doubling today easily and him being a factor in the passing game. So for me, I'm going Breece Hall.
Rubin comes in and says, hopefully we don't get fooled like idiots when Fields does RPOs. Joey Bosa, Seabo get ball. He struggled a little bit early against the Ravens, so hopefully he's figured that out. James Sinclair, high praise for the rookie. Armand Membu, the right tackle, had a really good opening performance there for the Jets. And EB comes in and says, Justin Fields' legs. Yeah, that's definitely something you need to take into account. Since you went Breece Hall, who, again, almost 150 yards total offense, 90 yards after contact last week, 4 10-plus yard runs, just an electric week 1 for Breece Hall. He's back. He's fully back. He was our guy in that draft a couple of years ago. The Bills ended up with James Cook, so not a bad plan B there. And you also can't complain about that draft. We extended like 6 guys from that class. So I'll go with Quinnen Williams. Since you went offense, I'll go defense. 5 hurries, a sack, 2 quarterback hits, 2 hurries, 5 run stops, right? He was a beast, and he will be a beast again because he is always a beast when he's out there on the football field. So Quinnen Williams is the player the Buffalo Bills need to respect. And if the referees allow him to hold on every play, I guess you could throw Sauce Gardner in there too. But only if they let him hold.
Which they will. They will.
All right. Moving on now to let's have a little fire sale here with our hottest takes. Our hottest takes for this game. All right. Again, you're not allowed to clip these and hold them against us. You're only allowed to share them if they are correct. I know Marino's Legacy came in earlier with a 10 sack prediction, which I think might be a little bit difficult on Justin Fields of all people. But Dave, what is your hottest take in this football game?
Hot take for me, the rookies, TJ Sanders and Deion Walker each get a sack today against Justin Fields. I feel like that's a pretty hot take because he only got sacked once, I believe, a week ago. If I'm not mistaken, let me just fact check myself here.
Yes, there was one sack.
Yes, 1 sack for 6 yards last week. I think Deion Walker and TJ Sanders, the rookies, each get a sack today. I'm not saying those will be the only sacks for the Bills. I hope they're not the only sacks for the Bills, but I think those guys make their mark. Deion Walker, obviously his bread and butter looks to be at this stage being able to get to the quarterback. It looks like that's probably TJ Sanders' strength at this stage as well. Give me some Justin Fields. Bring him to the turf. Get him down. Each of those guys get a sack.
I'm all in on Terrell Bernard today, and for a number of reasons. Number one, I had those lofty expectations for him in our preseason prediction show. Also, I waited well after everyone else in my fantasy league took an IDP because I was like, I'm just going to steal Terrell Bernard with my last pick. Didn't work out so well for me last week, and there's really no one on the waiver wire to pick up for my IDP that looks all that intriguing. So I'm really going to need 10 plus tackles.
Quincy Williams available?
Maybe. I just need 10 plus tackles from Terrell Bernard today and either an interception or a forced fumble. That's
it. That's it.
Force 1 turnover and get 10 plus tackles. That's all I need from you. That's all I need from the Dart Dog today. So James Leclerc comes in and says, special team score. Charles G comes in and says Shakir and the tight ends combined for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. See, here's the thing, Charles. That is the kind of take that would have gotten me yelled at last year. That is the kind of take that would have got me yelled at last year. I feel like you got to be spicier, Charles. I feel like you can get away with it. You can pull it off. I can't pull it off. Like I throw something out there and I got Spin, who's I think still asleep because I have not seen him in the chat section yet. Just absolutely ripping me to shreds. Johnny Utah comes in and says, do you think Strong rotates with White today? Love your show. Go Buffalo. I don't know. If Trey White is active today, who's out? Is it Jamarcus Ingram or is it Dorian Strong? Some might say like, well, it's going to be one or the other. One will be active, one will be inactive. So it'll be 100%. Whoever plays. And Jamarcus Ingram will be the backup because of his special teams ability. But Dorian Strong played special teams at Virginia Tech. And he played special teams in the preseason. So I legitimately think if Trey White is active today, Dorian Strong could be the other corner and Jamarcus Ingram could be inactive. Maybe Brandon Codrington gets an inactive and they use Shakir to return punts because, he had a knee brace on the back half of that football game. So there's a number of ways they could go, but I think they're going to pick one and go with one. I don't think it's going to be a rotation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And like I said at the beginning of the show when we talked about this, if Johnny missed it, I think if Trey White is 100% healthy, he'll get the start.
Charles G, he upticked it 200 yards and 4 touchdowns.
There you go. There you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now it is time for us to take you back to the future with our game prediction. All right, Dave, paint a picture for us. Take us back to the future. What's your score prediction? How's this game going to turn out?
The Bills have scored under 20 points in 4 of their last 6 trips to MetLife. It's not been a great venue for them. It's been with as much success as this team has had in the regular season, points wise, record wise, all that. This has been one of their their house of horrors is MetLife Stadium against the Jets. And they've won some of these games, but they've also lost some of these games that they probably shouldn't have due to sloppy play, turnovers, etc. I think the offense is a little sluggish today again at MetLife, but I do think they will end up scoring enough points. I think Palmer making an impact, Shakir making an impact, the ancillary pieces you mentioned, like Knox making an impact, and really, as well as James Cook kind of being the engine, Josh Allen using his legs. The Bills will score enough points today, hopefully limit the turnovers, as we saw the Jets did not force any turnovers last week against the Steelers. And the Bills offense does enough today to score in the sort of mid to high 20s. And I think the defense, while improved, is still not where the Bills necessarily want it to be today. But I do think you get a better, more spirited effort from Bernard and Milano today. I think you will see a bit of improved play from Rapp today. The big question comes down to, I think, TJ Sanders and Walker, who I hope get a sack each in my hot take, play well and kind of contain Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson as much as you can. And in the end, I think the Bills do have enough on offense to kind of outlast the Jets here. And so I'll say Bills 27, Jets 23.
Got James Leclerc coming in saying Bills win in a scoreagami. I have a similar score. I'm saying Bills 31, Jets 23. I think the Bills have decent control most of the game, but they're just never able to quite put the Jets away. You mentioned the MetLife has been sort of a house of horrors for the Bills. So I think it'll be better, but I still don't think we'll have the ability to put them away because of some of those things. I think the defense looks better, but still allows some bad toxic differential explosives. But I still think they manage a key turnover and the Bills offense leads the way. So I got Bills 31, Jets 23. Dezu F1 comes in and says, honestly, just get out of Snoopy's house healthy and I'll be happy. Dan Van K says 28-19 Bills. So that should just about do it for us here this morning. Dave, any final thoughts before we sort of head out of here?
No, just these trips to MetLife are always weird. We've had a couple of these in prime time, so it's kind of like
such a miserable stadium, dude. Like,
yeah, a lot of these games we've played against the Jets too in MetLife have been in prime time, so it is a little bit nice to kind of have a run-of-the-mill 1 p.m. game today there to kind of, and we have Nance and Romo on the call as well, so that should be fun time. But yeah, I want to get out of there healthy, as this F1 says, but I want to get out of there with a win as well, because you beat the Ravens a week ago. You beat the Ravens a week ago, who are going to be in contention for that number 1 seed still, I believe, and you now have the tiebreak over them, and you want to start getting these division wins and knocking these out as well.
There's really no excuse for the Bills not to start the season 4-0, 2-0 in the AFC East. Like, they have a chance here. Like, when you want this 1 seed, this week off in the wild card, like this has eluded us
yes,
year after year after year. This is your shot.
Yep, you got to win.
Do you work here? Do you work on Thursday night? Do you work against the Saints at home? Like 4-0, 2-0 in the division. That should be the nice little jump start you need, especially given the way some of these other teams have taken off to start the season. There was something else I was going to say, and
go Eagles against the Chiefs.
Go Eagles. There was something else that I wanted to say, and it is eluding me. But one thing I'm not forgetting is that you should definitely check out the Cover One post-game show live following the game. And our next show is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. So you're going to want to check that out as well. If you're looking to help us out here at the Air Raid Hour, there are 3 things you can do. Number 1 is smash that like button. That helps us with the algorithm. Number 2 is share. We want to spread this thing through word of mouth. The game doesn't kick off for another 4 hours here. So if you think you have any friends, family, anyone who would enjoy this show, click that share button, share on your socials, send someone a text. We would really appreciate that. And then when this is done being live, go back and leave a comment on the on-demand video that is left over. That helps us with the algorithm as well. It can be a score prediction, a hot take, some comment on something we've talked about, anything you want. Just leave a comment after the show is done being live when it's that on-demand video. That is greatly appreciated and helps us with the algorithm as well. I've been saying it for a few weeks now. We don't like the clickbaity titles. We don't like to yell and scream. Like we just like to have a nice, fun conversation with Bills Mafia here And sometimes that's not the sexiest thing for the algorithm. So anyway, you can help us out with the algorithm. We really appreciate that. And any final thoughts before we get out of here, Dave?
No, let's just get this win today.
Let's get this win. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here this evening. You guys always make this a much better show. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!